Investing in properties. I love investing in properties. You may have heard me talk about investing in properties previously. I think actually investing in properties is great. It allows you to have more control than the stock market because things are in your hands. And I found personally that you actually achieve a higher return on your investment if you invest in property correctly. Now, there are different types of property investments. There are residential properties. These are buy-to-let properties and you will be a landlord. There are subcategories of this as well. You have your just regular buy-to-let. You have house of multiple occupancies where you will rent out a room. You have the serviced accommodation, which is like your Airbnbs. So there are loads and loads of opportunities under the residential section. And we will talk a lot more about this in the Millionaire Status course, because that is a section that will propel you fast into the millionaire status. But these are some categories of the residential investing in property. You also have commercial property that you can invest in. These are commercial buildings, usually industrial sites and things like that, where you will buy the building themselves and you will rent these out to companies. These are usually more stable, however, they do come with higher costs, and you may even have higher void periods where you actually do not have a company in that building and you have to pay the mortgage. So in one sense it is risky, but the contracts that you sign with companies are usually for much longer than with a residential property, which is usually 6 months or a year for residential. They can even be something like 5 years for a company. So you do have more security in that sense through the contract with a company. But it is usually more expensive to buy a commercial building as well. But we'll get into that at a later point in the future. And we will definitely get into that when it comes to the Millionaire Status course. If you don't have the capital up front, it can be extremely hard to invest in property because the barrier to entry is hard to get into. I do recommend breaking through that barrier and getting to that point. But if you are not at the point where you can afford a deposit for a house, then you can also invest in what we call REITs, real estate investment trusts. These are just a trust. You do not need a high deposit. You can buy this on any investing app. So looking for REITs, and this is basically buying a small portion of a property and you receive a small portion of the rent back, an equivalent small portion of the rent back. So you can actually get involved in property without a huge deposit. Now this is seen very similar to stocks and shares and equities. So it's quite similar, although stocks grow in value and REITs, they do grow in value a little bit, but they also receive a rent. Now, so you've got the option. That's a great diversification tool, but I do recommend trying your best to break down the barrier and get involved in property directly yourself, because the returns that you can receive through leverage on your mortgage is huge, where unfortunately you cannot get a mortgage to buy REITs because it's like a stock. It works like a stock. You buy it on an app and you can get involved in equities, but you cannot get a loan out for that equity. You cannot get a mortgage out, so you cannot leverage that mortgage to increase your returns. But you absolutely can do that when it comes to residential property and commercial property. So I absolutely recommend that you do your best to break down that barrier on getting into the property real estate market. And I will tell you how to get there in the Millionaire Status course. This is a great foundational course to actually build that foundation to get you there, but the Millionaire Status course will give you so many more options in actual getting into real estate.